Everyone, I'd like to call the Educator Effectiveness Committee to order. And at this time, let's have roll call. May I have your attention, please? Thank you. Present.
Here. Ms. Holly Buffy. Here. Ms. Connie Bradford. Here. Ms. Penny Gasku. Here. Mr. Jim Garvey. Mr. J. Neal.
Here.
Ms. Carolyn Hill.
Here.
Mr. Walter Lee. Ms. Kyra Orange Jones. And Mr. Chad Holmes.
Here.
Okay.
Okay, at this time, Ms. Bridget, will you read item 2, please?
Certainly. The first item on the agenda is item 2.1 on page 1, consideration of approval of the Teacher Leader Program at Leading Educators, and the department recommendation is to approve.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
It's now open for discussion. Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none. Is there any opposition? No opposition, the motion carries.
The next item on the agenda is item 2.1 on page 4, a consideration of approval of teacher education programs at Southern University at New Orleans. The department recommendation is to approve.
Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Board members, do we have any discussion?
I
Ms.
just
Bovee?
have some questions, just because I see this as an area where we could potentially make some ground with educator effectiveness in the future. And so I was just curious as to what this process entails and how we could potentially improve it to make sure that we have the best preparation that we can for our teacher candidates.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Bovee. Is there someone from the department who's willing to speak on this item?
Maybe I can understand better the question. What do you mean? How would we improve it? You mean how would we improve teacher education?
Well, yeah. What kind of information are the institutions responsible for providing? And then I'm just interested in that process and wondering if we can work on improving that process to improve the results.
Do you sense that there's a particular problem with the process?
I sense that I want the best prepared teachers that we could possibly have.
Then we agree on that. We use both quantitative and qualitative data. And for whatever it's worth, I think that, the Secretary of Education has openly praised Louisiana for being a state that uses qualitative value-added data to actually evaluate its ed schools. So I certainly don't want to say that it can't be better, but I do think that we're probably, as sophisticated as anyone is around actually evaluating the portfolio of ed schools. So I think, if we want to sit down and just do a briefing on how this is actually done, I think we should and walk through it in more detail.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I would agree with Ms. Bovee. I'll give you an example. We are doing a better job than many states, I think, at starting to track our data on teacher effectiveness. But there are some, bureaucratic things in place that I don't know that may need to be addressed over time. For instance, we get the value-added data back, and we can share the gross results with universities, but we can't tell them which students that they had previously taught to be teachers. We can't match up the data to the teacher yet because of rules that are in place. So I don't want to belabor this point, but I would recommend that we get a few of the board members together and look at how are we evaluating these programs. Is there a better way for us to do it? Is there something that we're not doing now that we should be? I think that's a valid point.
Madam Chair?
Yes, please.
I think also, along with that, I think we can't give specific teachers or whatever, but we can share with the universities the issues that we are seeing. Because I'm with Holly. I think at some point we need to start changing the way we prepare our teachers in order to be sure that they are going to have the best shot at being the most effective. And I think the Board of Regents has worked well with us, and we've been very fortunate in that, and those dialogues have begun. But I think it's something that as we get more specific information, we can increase that partnership.
Okay,
I'd like to recommend to make Ms. Bovee interact with the Board of Regents and come back to us with a great plan.
Mr. Romer be her co-chair. I have a question.
Yes, in fact, I'm recommending
You say that we have value added on the Southern University I mean, we're not really looking at anything with about, how well they are doing. So that probably would help inform the decision, is if we actually saw where they rank and amongst other teacher preparation programs.
Yeah.
Because there is this general sense that things are not that strong at Southern University
Yep,
in New Orleans.
fair.
And so I think that's why you're hearing some of the hesitancy. One point, and Superintendent, I hope that you can help get us there, is that this information, yes, we're very good at developing this information. We don't share it with prospective teachers who are determining which program that they want to enter. They don't know whether Southern produces the best math teachers, or does that happen at the University of Louisiana Monroe. We don't share that information, and I don't think we share it with the districts when they go to make hiring decisions. When they're looking for a middle school math teacher that they can decide they might want a graduate from a certain university. So there's a long way to go with what we're doing, and I hope that you can help get us there.
Agreed on all fronts.
Okay, and along those lines, I would ask, in my conversations with university personnel, they have asked to be included in the discussions and certainly the dissemination of information. So I'd ask you, Superintendent White, to, whenever there are meetings, what have you, invite them to the table as well, because they need to be a part of the discussions.
Agreed.
So we have a motion and a second. Is there any opposition? Well, first let me ask, are there any other discussions? If not, we have a motion and a second. Any opposition to the motion? Hearing none, the motion carries. I'm sorry.
Your next item is item 3.1, a consideration of revisions to Bulletin 746, Louisiana Standards for State Certification of School Personnel, regarding policy related to the implementation of Act 54 and its impact on the certification of school personnel. The department recommendation is to approve as a notice of intent.
Okay. At this time, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve as notice of intent.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'd like to make a substitute motion.
Wait, we need a second on the motion.
I'll make a second.
Okay, Mr. Romer seconds the motion. Okay, at this point, I'll ask if there's any discussion, and you did indicate, Ms. Hill, that you want to,
Make a substitute motion.
If I might make comment on this motion.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Ms.
No,
Nestor.
you first.
Thank you. This is a response to a law passed by the legislature, which is that the regulation currently around how teachers are certified is out of step with the expectation of the law that certification be contingent on an evaluation other than being ineffective. And so this essentially brings the regulations that we have as the State Department and as the BESE Board responsible for certifying teachers in line with the law, which makes certification a function of teachers' evaluations. And in essence says that a teacher has to have received a favorable recommendation, for example, in 3 of their first 5 years, 3 years, in order to attain certification on level 2, for example. And that's already in the law, but this is, in essence, aligning our process with the law.
okay, thank you, Mr. White, but along those lines, I know Mr., our board member, brain freeze here, the board member.
Lee.
Walter Lee. He did say that he had some concerns, and I would just like you to know that there is an addendum in the back whereby, an attachment in the back whereby the superintendents, the Superintendent's Advisory Council, I know that according to the minutes, it was asked of staff to identify a list of issues or concerns, and then that would be brought back to them, and I need to ask the department, or you, if that indeed was done.
I'm sorry, maybe I don't understand that the Superintendents Association has a list of issues?
According to the minutes in this booklet, it said that there was a discussion, and they asked, it was the understanding, in fact, I reached out to a few superintendents to ask if they were satisfied with the concerns, did the department meet back with them, and the response was they didn't get that information. So I'm concerned. I want to make sure this is very important to all stakeholders, superintendents, personnel directors, and we have been presented the information with the deletions and the additions, if you will, but I need to ask the question, was this document brought back to this advisory panel, advisory committee, so that they could review it to see that whether they would be satisfied with the information there? And
Thank you.
So,
Jessica, why don't I ask Jessica Tucker, who on our policy team, to walk through all of the engagement that's been done?
Sure. So, Ms. Beebe, we brought the concept to PSAC at their meeting. As you know, those meetings are a number of weeks before the actual meeting. The policy wasn't fully developed to that point, and we essentially said to them, here's what we're planning to do. Here are the things that Act 54 requires us to do, and all we're bringing at this point is alignment with that. There were a number of questions and comments and concerns around various things related to Compass. I noted all of those in a long list of notes and immediately followed up on what we could, which, for example, there were questions about in Act 54, what does it say about dismissal or this or that. Sent those to Superintendent Falk, and he shared with the committee. There were some additional questions, most of which were answered in the what I would call a communication blitz that we did a week or two ago, where the department has put together memos and numerous resources, some of which we'll go over tomorrow in the policy forum, describing what implementation, training, what the requirements are, where there are flexibilities around the implementation of Compass. That was all shared with the superintendents. And then there were a few superintendents that had specific questions, for example, to their region or just very nuanced questions. On all of those, our Deputy Superintendent of Innovation, Narissa Cofield, sent an email to those specific superintendents following up with answers to their questions.
but thank you. But once again, I want to make the point that I know that the superintendents, and I'm speaking on their behalf, would appreciate the copy as it was presented to us before we take action on this. So I wanted to make that point, that in the future, that if time would permit, that we would, any changes or any communication, that you would make sure what we're presented, that they are presented, these committees, so that they could have a voice in
The
certain...
backup policy,
Yes.
just to clarify.
Yes, that you've included here. It's my understanding that some were not aware of the changes. And I know myself, I would want to see it in hard copy or even electronic file, but I would want to see the strikes and the additions, okay? And I think, Ms. Hill, you wanted to make a substitute motion?
Yes, my substitute motion was to send the document back to the Superintendent Advisory Council to get feedback as well, because I know they play a very critical part in Act 54, and it's going to affect their teachers and their staff. So I would love for them to have input, because if that's the case, if they don't, then what's the purpose of having a Superintendent Advisory Council? So.
Okay, so Ms. Hill has offered a substitute motion. Do we have a second? Okay, hearing none, the substitute motion fails. I was just made aware that we have someone who wants to speak to this issue, this item, Ms. Mary Patricia E. Ray, representing the Louisiana Federation of Teachers at this time. You want to come forward?
Hi, thanks for taking a few minutes. My name is Mary Patricia Ray. I'm with the Louisiana Federation of Teachers. I'm our new legislative director. You may remember Allison, who had my job before, and so I'm the new Allison. I've been with the Federation since February, and I will keep it brief today. I've met a couple of you, and I've met the superintendent. But basically, speaking in opposition today, solely on the basis that our organization believes that many of the pieces and parts of Act 54 are not ready for prime time, that the pilot isn't going very well. There are some people who agree with us. There are some people who disagree with us. But on that basis, linking teacher credentials and their certification to those pieces and parts of Act 54, which we're just not satisfied with, is something that we are opposed to. And I appreciate the time that you've given me to be here today. Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
am I correct that
Thank you.
this is going out as a notice of intent, and this will be the opportunity for people to weigh in on what their opinions are?
Yes, that is my understanding.
Good,
Yes.
so everyone that has that objection will have this opportunity now to put forth those objections.
Thank you for that observation. Ms.
I
Dasty?
would just like to note that we don't really have the luxury of, because we don't like something that is passed by the legislature, to not, to not comply and to create the policy and rule that the law requires us to do. So I would suggest that there's probably been other times, and I'm not suggesting that on this one, that we've had to pass policy that perhaps we didn't support that was passed. So we don't have, the board, in my opinion, the board doesn't have the luxury of not taking the action that the superintendent has brought to us today.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Dasty. So we have a motion and a second. Any opposition to the
I have a
motion?
question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
On page 11, under Part D, it's renewal guidelines, and it says something about valid for 6 years initially, and maybe renewed thereafter for a period of 6 years. Where does the 6 come from?
This is the World Language Certificate,
Okay.
so it's a different, historically been a different certificate with a different time period, but we're making the same change that we're making to the traditional certificate framework by ensuring that there's 3 years of effectiveness that replaces the CLU requirement. Does that answer?
So it was so it's a different certification. I get that. So it's world language instead of one of the other types. So why the 6? I guess is a big question.
Because immigration laws require foreign associate teachers to have certificates equal to a length of 6 years.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? And once again, this is for notice of intent.
Correct.
Yes. So is there any opposition to the motion? So hearing none, the motion carries. Okay, and the next item is Bridget.
Next item is 4.1 on page 18, consideration of a presentation by Mr. Denny Bond regarding the 6th annual Cecil J. Picard Symposium on Academic Excellence.
Okay, do we have a motion to receive?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. So at this time, we would yield to Mr. Denny Bond to have a 5-minute presentation. Good afternoon, Mr. Bond.
Thank you. It's good to be here. I'm here to speak this afternoon regarding the 6th annual Cecil J. Picard Symposium.
Could you speak into the mic, please? Thank you.
Is that better?
Yes.
All right. I'm the chairman of an organization called Dream Teachers 501c3. It's a group of folks that are very dedicated to public and charter school education in the state of Louisiana. The program began in 2006. We're very happy to report that it has moved forward rapidly and is gaining strength and seems to be well received throughout the entire state of Louisiana. It started thanks to Superintendent Cecil J. Picard a few years ago, and he was kind enough through his family to let us put his name on this event. Dream Teachers does a lot more than just the annual symposium, but I'm here today to make sure you put it on your calendars to attend this year, and Chaz, I'll come by and pick you up the evening for the event. We're expecting banner turnout, over 800 attendees. The major idea behind the event is to reward and recognize those outstanding educators in our state of Louisiana. Just a few statistics, and I have put some propaganda in front of you. We started out in 2006. We had approximately 34% participation for the Teacher of the Year program from the entire state of Louisiana. Not very good. Last year, we went over 85%. The program is I guess you would say, a lot of fun for those of us in the private sector that believe in education, have grown up through public education, but haven't participated in education, although I do have a degree in education and a master's in secondary school administration. So I guess you're saying just wanting to make sure I do my part. I brought something for Superintendent White. This is last year's program. You'll notice on the first page that the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education is a major part of the program. We've created a great triangle between the Dream Teachers, Board of Elementary and Secondary Education, and the Louisiana Department of Education. It's a win-win for the state of Louisiana. In closing, I spoke with John Quam last week, who's the Executive Director for the National Teacher of the Year program. He's very much aware of what we're doing. We have moved from not being on the radar for the National Teacher of the Year program to I think we're probably one of the 5 top programs right now. And we're checking out what the other 5 are doing. Bottom line, we need your help. You know, our objectives are pretty much threefold. We want to make sure that, you know, we do reward and recognize those outstanding educators. We want to make sure that we get 100% participation from the state of Louisiana. We want to gain more awareness and visibility for not just the dream teachers, but education as a profession throughout the state. And finally, we are very, very interested in getting a National Teacher of the Year, which we don't have yet. But we're learning what it takes to make sure that we provide all of the information to the National Teacher of the Year program. Our advisory council meeting will be this month, March 29th at 1 o'clock at the LABI offices over there off of Chamberlain or Brando. You know where it is. Hopefully we'll see some of you there. I know a couple of you are going to be able to stop by and say hello. And that's kind of the kickoff towards the sponsorship fundraising report on the Fun Golf Tournament that's going to be a little later this month, and really getting into the nuts and bolts of the program. 2 last things. Last year we created a Dream Teachers Louisiana State Teacher of the Year alumni organization, and it's rocking and rolling. I mean, there's a good group. They've got officers. They've incorporated with Dream Teachers, and they've got a lot going on. And then last but not least, we'll be meeting later on this month with a organization out of Houston, Apache Corporation, to review a grant program that we've gotten involved in that's going to provide somewhere between 25 and 35 grants between $5,000 and $10,000 for teachers throughout the state of Louisiana. So you might not know much about us, but there's 36 of us out there working very hard. And thank you very much. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Bond. In fact, I want to commend you for carrying on the legacy of Superintendent Pecord. And I know certainly I was a strong supporter. He was an advocate of teacher quality, and I remember when Louisiana was rated an A+ for teacher quality. So I do commend you for the work that you do, and appreciate you. Any other discussion, Ms. Bradford?
You know, I think it's very important to note that at this time, we have a former Teacher of the Year sitting on the BESE board. That's right.
Yes, congratulations, Ms. Bopey. Yeah.
Thank you. And I'd just like to say thank you to Denny for all of the stuff that he does, and also to Dream Teachers, because making the teacher's voice something that is able to contribute to this process is very important. I'm very excited about the previous Teachers of the Year having an opportunity to come together and be a service to the department and a service to the children of the state. Before I became a State Teacher of the Year, I didn't know one. I didn't know that the program existed, and I think that we have a lot of capacity in our state to continue to grow. Now we have John Quam's attention, and I look forward to us having a National Teacher of the Year. It's actually one of my life goals is to make sure Louisiana gets that. So
we'll do it.
Thank you, Ms. Bopey. Anyone else with any comments? Okay, so we had a motion to receive in a second. Is there any opposition? Hearing none, the motion carries. Next item.
The next item is 4.2 on page 19, a consideration of granting a hearing to Ms. Anita Coleman regarding the issuance of a Louisiana teaching certificate appropriate to her credentials. And board members, I will remind you that you got additional information with your packet on this item.
Okay, at this time, do we have a motion on this item? Ms. Hill, did you have your hand up? Okay. Do we have a motion?
Madam Chairman, I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion that we deny a hearing to Ms. Anita Coleman regarding the issuance of a Louisiana teaching certificate appropriate to her credentials.
Okay, you've heard the motion. Is there a second? Okay, Ms. Bradford, seconds.
I'd like to make a substitute
Wait,
motion.
okay. Okay, at this point.
I'd like to make a substitute motion.
Before you
What-
make the substitute motion,
yeah, let's have
can I
discussion.
Let them
Yes.
make their comment.
Yeah, let's do discussion. Thank you, Ms. Hill. So at this time, I understand that any board members at this point would like to discuss. If not, we'll yield. I think there's a cord.
Well, I mean,
Yeah,
I would
Ms.
just
Coleman.
say that a year ago, the board, or in January 2011, a little over a year ago, the board did consider the same request from the same individual, and based on the evidence presented at that time, voted to deny a hearing. And the information that has been provided is, I think, similar, if not identical, to the information that was provided last year. So the reason for my motion is that there's nothing new here than there was a year ago when the board made this decision. So
Okay.
that's all I have to say about it.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Astu, but for the benefit of those of us who
Right.
were not here,
Yes, ma'am.
we will entertain discussion by Ms. Anita Coleman. And Ms. Coleman, welcome, and you will have 3 minutes to address the board.
Good evening. I've been with children all my life, and recently this came up on my background. Well, I was involved in a case 18 years ago, and I testified for the federal government. And so now I'm trying to find out why it came up all of a sudden, because I've been working with daycare centers, and I've had background checks, and it hasn't come up. So I just want you all to table this at this time so that I can get in touch with the attorney, the DA for the federal government, so that I can get her to present the information that is needed to let you all know that I was exonerated of those charges. And that's why I didn't serve any time. I was working for someone that did the bad thing. And since then, I have never been involved in anything else. My record is clean. And that's been 18 years ago. And I just want the chance to prove that I can be the best teacher. I'm still talking to the parents of kids that I've taught, and they're very interested in me teaching their kids again.
Okay, board members, thank you, Ms. Coleman. Is there any discussion?
I'd like to hear from Ms. Davis.
Okay.
Ms. Coleman, when she did apply for the PL certificate, checked yes to the question, have you ever been convicted of a felony offense, been found guilty, or entered a plea of nolo contendere? She did supply the department with court documents where she pled guilty to the offense, and you have all that before you. So there's no question of her guilt or innocence, and that's not what you're here to consider today. It's whether or not she's been rehabilitated, and you want to honor giving her a hearing.
Okay, well, we have a motion to deny. And
I have a question.
Okay.
You go first.
What does it mean? What does our motion mean, or what would a hearing include?
Well, a hearing would afford her the opportunity, I would think, to bring forth legal counsel, witnesses, what have you, to address her situation.
To BESE?
Yes.
And so we would be the ones doing the hearing?
Yes.
And if I may, Ms. Bopey, it's not like a hearing like you would typically think of a hearing. It's, it's just merely where she has witnesses testify to her rehabilitation. You will not consider her guilt or innocence in this matter. You have that information already.
Thank you.
It's whether or not you want to give her a hearing.
Thank you.
I have a question. In the backup that was provided, there was restitution that was required of $862,838. Was that paid back?
No, it was never paid because I didn't get any of the monies. And after a while, Miss Griffin just took me off probation. I think I stayed on probation like 2 years. And after they checked all my background and everything and found out that I didn't get any of those monies that was stolen from the federal government, then she just took it off of there.
Okay, I think, Ms. Hill, you had, you were ready to offer a substitute motion, or are you still?
I have some questions concerning this, and I think for a new board member to give me the opportunity to get a clear understanding as far as the rehabilitation. I know we're here today to actually listen to Ms. Coleman as far as have she been rehabilitated, correct, Ms. Shen?
Yeah.
You're just considering whether to grant the hearing.
Okay, now on the back on page 20, she has documentation of rehabilitations from numerous individuals stating that she has had rehabilitation. Am I correct?
Yes,
Well,
these are.
I think this would negate the, we're going to have the hearing now, so I think we don't need to go there. I just think, if you're ready to, you could offer a substitute
I would
motion
like
to
have a
grant the
substitute-
hearing.
Yeah, to grant her the hearing, at least the opportunity and the chance.
Substitute motion. All right, yeah. Okay, the second motion then, offer a motion to grant the hearing.
Yes.
Okay.
To give her the chance and opportunity.
Okay,
And she
so-
did follow the procedures that were required of her.
Okay, so we understand Ms. Hill's motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Romer seconds. So at this point, we'll have to vote on the motion, Ms. Hill's motion. So do we want to do roll call or just all in favor?
Roll call.
Okay, let's do roll call, starting. And this is Ms. Hill's motion to grant the hearing.
Correct. Mr. Bennett? Mr. Bennett is absent. Ms. Bofi?
Yes.
Ms. Bofi votes yes. Ms. Bradford?
No.
Ms. Bradford votes no. Ms. Dastuk?
No.
Ms. Dastuk votes no. Mr. Garvey? Mr. Garvey is absent. Mr. Gio?
No.
Mr. Gio votes no. Ms. Hill?
Yes.
Ms. Hill votes yes. Ms. Orange Jones? Ms. Orange Jones is absent. Mr. Lee? Mr. Lee is absent. Mr. Romer?
No.
Mr. Romer votes no. Ms. Beebe?
Yes.
Ms. Beebe votes yes. That is 3 yeses, 4 noes. The motion does not pass.
Okay, so we'll entertain the original motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. So at this point,
That was your last item on your last meeting of the day.
Wow.
okay, thank you.
1:30.